there is a type of person who has always felt slightly out of place. Not loud enough, not reactive enough, not visibly engaged enough. They don't rush to speak. They don't fill silence. They don't perform urgency. And because of that, something subtle happens. They are watched, not with curiosity, with suspicion. In a world that rewards noise, stillness looks like resistance. Quiet people are rarely accused directly. No one says, "You are a problem." Instead, the judgment is indirect. You're distant. You're hard to read. You should open up more. You're too calm. The message is always the same, even when the words change. Something about you makes others uncomfortable. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are not doing what is expected. Modern systems are built around visibility. Reaction is how engagement is measured. Response speed is how value is assigned. Expression is confused with participation. Silence breaks that logic. A quiet mind does not give easy signals. It does not leak emotion constantly. It does not announce its internal state. That absence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is something systems dislike. From an early age, quiet behavior is interpreted as a flaw that needs correction. Children are told to speak up. Adults are told to network more. Calmness is framed as a stage to grow out of. The assumption is simple. If you're not reacting, you must be disconnected. If you're not expressive, you must be disengaged. If you're not loud, you must be hiding something. This assumption follows people into every environment. Workplaces, relationships, social spaces. Quiet becomes a liability, not because it causes harm, but because it doesn't generate signals others can easily interpret. Most people don't realize how much pressure exists to perform presence. To smile on cue, to respond immediately, to fill gaps with words. Those who don't comply are subtly pushed to the edges. They are not excluded violently. They are misunderstood passively, and over time, that misunderstanding turns inward. Quiet people start questioning themselves. Am I doing something wrong? Should I be different? Why does calm feel like a problem? The discomfort doesn't come from silence itself. It comes from how silence is perceived. In environments that depend on constant stimulation, stillness feels like a malfunction. But stillness isn't absence. It's a different operating mode. One that doesn't broadcast itself. One that doesn't translate easily into metrics. One that resists being categorized quickly. And because it resists categorization, it is treated with caution. This is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. Quiet minds are not misunderstood by accident. They are misunderstood because they don't feed the system what it expects. And when something doesn't feed the system starts questioning it. Not out of malice, out of self-preservation. Once quiet behavior is marked as unusual, a predictable cycle begins. Interpretation replaces observation. Instead of asking what silence represents, people assume what it means, and assumptions are faster than understanding. The human brain is uncomfortable with unreadable signals. It prefers clarity, even false clarity over ambiguity. A loud reaction is easy to decode. Silence isn't. So the mind fills the gap. It assigns intention where there may be none. Distance becomes disinterest. Calm becomes detachment. Stillness becomes resistance. This is not conscious hostility. It's cognitive efficiency. People are trained to read behavior quickly. To lay back, to categorize, to move on. Quiet minds slow that process down. They don't offer immediate emotional feedback. They don't mirror energy. They don't confirm expectations in real time. That delay creates friction, and friction is often interpreted as threat. Psychologically, humans rely on social feedback loops to feel safe. We look for micro-reactions, facial cues, tone shifts, immediate responses. These signals reassure us that the environment is predictable. When they're missing, the nervous system stays alert. Not because something is wrong, but because something is unclear. In group dynamics, clarity is often valued more than accuracy. Someone who reacts loudly may be wrong, but readable. Someone who stays quiet may be right, but opaque. Opacity makes people nervous. Over time, this nervousness turns into narrative. He's cold. She's distant. They don't care. The narrative spreads faster than the truth. Quiet individuals rarely correct it, not because they agree, but because correcting it requires performance. Explaining silence defeats its purpose. So the narrative hardens. In professional environments, quiet minds are often overlooked, not due to lack of contribution, but due to lack of visibility. Value becomes associated with presence, not depth, with speed, not clarity. In social spaces, quietness is treated as absence, as if inner activity only exists when it's expressed outwardly. This creates a subtle hierarchy. Those who externalize constantly are seen as engaged. Those who internalize are seen as detached. The irony is that quiet minds often process more, not less. They observe longer. They reflect deeper. They react later. But later is often too late in systems that reward immediacy. So the misunderstanding persists, not because anyone is trying to suppress quiet minds, but because the environment is optimized for noise. Noise creates data. Data creates control. Control creates predictability. Silence disrupts that chain. It produces fewer signals. It offers less leverage. It resists quantification, and anything that resists measurement tends to be mistrusted. This is how calm becomes suspicious, how stillness becomes a problem, how silence is mistaken for absence. The pattern isn't personal. It's systemic. Quiet minds aren't misunderstood because they lack something. They're misunderstood because they don't give the system what it relies on. At some point, misunderstanding stops being accidental. It becomes useful. Systems don't need everyone to be loud. They need everyone to be predictable. Noise makes people visible. Visibility makes behavior trackable. And trackable behavior is easier to guide. Quiet minds disrupt that process. They don't broadcast emotion on demand. They don't react instantly. They don't confirm expectations in real time. This makes them harder to read and harder to steer. In environments built on constant stimulation, anything that reduces output is treated as inefficiency. Calm looks unproductive. Silence looks like disengagement. Stillness looks like refusal, not because it is, but because it doesn't feed the feedback loop. Over time, the pressure becomes internalized. Quiet people start compensating. They speak when they don't need to. They react when nothing requires reaction. They perform engagement to avoid suspicion. This is how the system wins, not by forcing noise, but by making silence feel unsafe. Once calm becomes something you have to explain, it stops being neutral. It becomes a liability, and liabilities are managed. This is why so many people feel relief only in isolation, at home, in silence, away from observation. Not because they hate people, but because they are no longer required to perform presence. No quest to send, no reactions to provide, no energy to project. The nervous system finally disengages from monitoring mode. This isn't weakness. It's recovery. The real threat to control isn't rebellion. It's withdrawal. A quiet mind that isn't reacting isn't being guided. It isn't being pulled by urgency. It isn't responding to pressure. It's deciding its own pace. And pace is power. That's why calm unsettles systems. It reduces leverage. It slows narratives. It breaks momentum. It creates gaps where independent thought can exist. So quiet minds are framed as problems, not aggressively, subtly, through jokes, through labels, through assumptions, until the person begins to question themselves. But the question was never about them. It was about compatibility. Quiet minds don't malfunction. They operate outside a system that depends on noise to function. Understanding that changes everything. It removes shame. It removes the need to justify calm. It reframes silence as choice, not defect. And once you stop trying to explain your stillness, you stop feeding what tries to manage it. That's where the real control war is fought. Not in arguments, not in resistance, but in whether you feel the need to perform at all. Before you leave, Take a second to check if you're resubscribed. Most people think they are. They usually aren't.